it's gonna be the, well, if not the, no, that's map config, point Napoleon. Okay. So, let me just avatar modify artist. There we go. So, it starts before the war, and the first thing that Napoleon would do is, invade Algeria, like, coastal bits of Algeria, to get a foothold in Africa. Then he would look further over to here, in North America, and they would ask Spain if they could have Louisiana back, and Spain accepts for like $1,000. So, and then from there they expand. The United States also expands up by here as well. There. United States also steals that from Spain. But anyway, back to focusing on Europe. So the first thing that they do is, they invade, Switzerland, and they annex everything. Then they invade Genoa or Geneva. I don't know what the country is called. Then they start their first attack on Austria, taking some stuff from them. Then they continue to take more from these lands over here in the Italian peninsula. They even merge into this area of Italy. Then they continue with their colonies back down here, eventually taking every single bit of what was left of the country of Algeria. Now, the first coalition starts against them. Now, Britain isn't in it yet, so it's basically all the people in the Holy Roman Empire. So everyone, every single one, except for the Netherlands. The Netherlands not right now. So instantly, the coalition gets pushed back by a massive amount. They continue to get pushed until they reach around here, which then Napoleon gets pushed back. but then he focuses up by here, eventually making it to there, taking some of Prussia, and Prussia leaves, not wanting to risk a massive war when they're trying to fix their own country. So they drop out as soon as that happened. But they will keep going if France doesn't return this, which they do, because they won't be fighting. If they can get a peace treaty, then that would be great. Then they continue to push to there. Eventually, these nations are right here surrender. Prussia actually got to have some things for dropping out early as a thank you from Napoleon. Now the Netherlands declare war on them, and the army was mainly focused around here and were beginning to return home. So as soon as they heard about that, they quickly ran with their cavalry encircling this chunk right here, taking it and rapidly pushing in by these islands, and eventually pushing them back by a ton. And then they say, "Okay, we're sorry, we're going to stop it," but France refuses, and they continue pushing until the Netherlands ceases to exist. Now anyway, so now the French Empire looks like this, and now Spain has uprisings and riots in their country, forming all over the place. France takes action of that by annexing this area of Algeria and these two islands, and Morocco also takes this from them by seeing it as an advantage. Now the riots start to pick up as more areas are revolting, basically turning Spain having a civil war against revolutionists, well, democratic revolutionists, and then monarchists. Now, as soon as it got to this point, the monarchists were still holding. They weren't holding to begin with, but they started to hold. Except for these two parts right here, which they got pushed back, but then they started to hold. France then starts supplying them, and before declaring war on the monarchist Spain, eventually cutting them off from the sea, and from all sides they would close in, eventually getting to Madrid before the whole country would surrender. Let me just change the color, because I don't want to confuse it with Morocco, because it's similar color. So anyway, the revolutionists make their own government and demolish the monarchy completely. You know what, maybe it'll be quicker if Sorry, I was idle for a little bit. I was just doing something. Anyway, so after the Democratic Revolutionists won the Civil War, well, the first Spanish Civil War, well, I'm just gonna call it the Civil War. They make their own government and start becoming friends with France. Now, at this time, the Second Coalition began, mainly of these Italian nations and still Austria. Now, instantly, these nations right here, this nation of Tuscany collapsed. The Papal States, as soon as it got to this point, they just dropped out the war. Venice was beginning to fall. Eventually, they did fall. And when they did surrender, Austria took advantage of it by invading these islands here and these bits here. Then France takes these parts of Austria and also takes a couple of islands there before Austria says, okay, that was a mistake. And then now France is focusing back in Africa, where they would continue to expand. They would also start to take some stuff in these areas over by here. Anyway, they would also take this unclaimed land here. And they would basically just focus on following the unclaimed land in areas that they can march through. Eventually they made it to these forests here. And they finally met up with the Atlantic Ocean. And they kept on advancing through the forest, following like rivers and stuff. Anyways, so back to Europe. At this point, Napoleon would go all out, conquer, and just take these countries here. Poland would also start getting beaten up too. Russia would take a lot from them. Austria would take quite a bit. Let me see. Yeah, they would just take. And yeah, that's basically they were shrunk to that. And these parts of Prussia would be invaded by France, as well as these bits and this. But Prussia would start invading some more of their of lands, the like German lands. And I'm gonna do a part 2 because I'm tired.